Hey guys, it's Hink here. Today, I can present to you all of the data I can find to definitively answer the question, according to actually published medical literature, does size matter? So we can finally put this question to bed. Now, that being said, I know that there's going to be those keyboard warriors that no matter what I say one way or another, that are just going to disagree because they are fixed in their mind on what their ideal answer is. But regardless, we're going to dissect the medical data and get a final answer. I'll give my opinion and you guys let me know in the conclusion after you watch this video, does size matter? Specifically when we're talking about actual your partner's satisfaction, okay? Not does it matter to you, because I'm not gonna, oh guys, size doesn't matter. Size matters, guys. Like I'm not an idiot, but does it actually contribute to higher rates of pleasure is the point of this video. So guys, they're apparently these pioneers of sexual research, and they're the name of Johnson and Masters. Keeps coming up in all the literature. And I mean, I think this is kind of asinine, but they had this premises that said there's this theory of vaginal adaptation, which means the vagina is a potential space rather than an actual space, and therefore it can accommodate whatever size is being inserted. So it's very big, it can accommodate, very small, it can accommodate, therefore size doesn't matter, okay? Now guys, we're talking about literature published in like the 60s and 70s primarily, but that's what started as the foundation for a lot of this. So let's just start the literature talking about length. Guys, if you haven't seen my video, I recently published all about this research here, which showed that when they actually had like a randomized trials of couples using different size thickness rings, what they found was that a reduction in length by about 18% leads to a reduction in satisfaction by about 15%. They're not saying that the longer the better. They're saying that if you're used to a certain length and then you reduce that length, it does lead to decreases in sexual satisfaction. Now, where does this come into play? You start out with your girl and you're in shape, and then you gain 50 pounds and you have this big fat pad and you're not able to penetrate as deeply. That is going to decrease your partner's sexual satisfaction, okay? Then same things that can affect erection quality, where normally, you're this big, but then you have poor erection quality from smoking or diabetes or nicotine, whatever it may be, and therefore at max capacity, you're more like this big, that's going to have a reduction in length. That is going to make a difference. So guys, next, what we're going to talk about is actually like getting over the top, the big O for the woman. We're not going to be talking about like any external stimulation. We're talking about strictly like insertive penetration alone, okay? And how does size play into achieving a O with that? So this is a study that looked at over 1,000 Czech women. What they found is that there's an association between wanting a bigger size and higher rates of the vaginal big O, okay? B-O, wow. Vaginal big O. So here, now, guys, you have to understand that these are surveys that are done. This is not the highest quality data. I do wish the data was better, but it is what it is, guys. Here is this 323 women's survey that was completed online. It said that women who prefer deeper penetration are the ones that are more likely to have, let's call them VOs, okay? So for YouTube, hopefully to make this not get demonetized. Therefore, the girls who get over the top by insertion are the ones that are more likely to prefer the larger peepees. Kind of common sense. But both of those surveys show that when you're talking about insertive O's, it does matter as far as size. So guys, next we're going to talk about width versus length, okay? Most of you guys are already familiar with this data, but it's pretty crappy, guys. All of these are online studies or telephone surveys, rather, okay? What they did was they had a phone survey of 50 women, and they gave them a binary choice. What matters more, length or width? And 45 out of 50% said width matters more. So 90% of them said width. So, we can kind of definitively close the door. What matters more, length versus girth? And then they kind of speculated, well, maybe with more girth, it leads to more like stimulation of some of the other surrounding tissue, which leads to more pleasurable experience, blah, blah, blah. But guys, we have an answer. Girth matters more. Now here we come across some really interesting data. And once again, it's a survey that was done from like these 5 major cities in Croatia that looked at different age groups, and they actually quantified how much the importance of penile length and girth is based on different age group and then based on how many partners the person had. When they actually broke it down by age group, there was actually no real difference, okay? If anything, some of the older age groups actually almost seem to prefer like smaller, more medium size. However, it gets interesting when you quantify for the number of partners that a person has had. So on this table 2 here, you can see that when the people had greater than 5 partners, they found both penile length and girth more important than those with less partners. So Guys, body count matters. And, I'm not here to shame anybody. And, I'm certainly not going to say, this is what a high value woman is or any of that, like, TikTok stories. But it does matter. If your partner has a large body count, she probably is going to care more about size than a person who only had a very small or basically no body count. And in my own personal anecdotal story, like, I was my significant other's like first and only. Okay. So therefore she did not give a single flying F about the size of my pee-pee. Okay. It's probably part of the reason why, at least subconsciously, that we're together now. I am going to read a quote for you though, because once again, guys, an overarching theme of all of this is that most women truly do not care. It's a very small population of women that care one way or another. And of that population that actually care, some women prefer smaller. So here's the quote, guys. The majority of respondents judged to be somewhat important when talking about actual penile size, okay, 44.9%, while the rest were equally divided between it being unimportant, okay, and being very important for their satisfaction. So most people either say it doesn't matter or it's a little important. Very few people say its size is very important. Here, I thought I had hit a gold mine. So it's a literature review entitled The Effect of Penis Size on Partner Satisfaction, a literature review. And I was like, yes, I finally got my answer. I finally had to do a deep dive, find the paper. And it was pretty anticlimactic. And I'll tell you why. They basically scoped through all of the literature they can find. And they've said, sorry guys, the literature is shit. You can't really make a conclusion based off the published data one way or another about the importance of size upon sexual satisfaction in female partners. However, they did find that there is compelling evidence that a certain subset of women truly do care. It's like, yeah, no surprise. We've already talked about that. About 85% of women don't care or are happy, and that other 15% of women are the ones that do care. And part of what they had theorized is that there was an actual evolutionary advantage to having a vaginal O, and therefore, like, nature kind of selected for the guys with the bigger peepees. But then they're saying that, the literature actually doesn't back that, and that there must be some other force at hand that is playing a bigger role, because women don't really care about size like that. All right, and so now it's time we got to look into the literature for all my gay bros out there. So does size matter more or less for gay bros? Well, this paper actually brought up some important findings because, obviously not that sexual diseases don't affect heterosexual couples, but they do seem to be more prominent in certain circles of the gay community. And what they found in this research is that they were concerned that actually a larger size could predispose you to actually more rates of things like your protection not fitting, or higher rates of STI, or higher rates of like AIDS due to like tears or anal fissures. So the study actually found a couple of different things that I think are applicable kind of throughout, whether in your heterosexual or homosexual relationship. But one of which is that there's an inverse relationship between the size of your pee-pee and how likely you are to lie about it. So the more average size you are, the more likely you are to lie to, somebody about what size you truly are. The guys that are truly more well endowed obviously lie less about it, okay? They found that the guys that are smaller size are the ones that are statistically more likely to be a bottom. They did find that not all the sexually transmitted diseases, but they found higher rates of HPV, herpes simplex virus 2, chlamydia, and gonorrhea with association with larger size. And then, I thought that this was kind of an interesting way of putting things, but they actually had something that was literally called the gay life satisfaction score. And, no surprise here, but, they could have just put life satisfaction score, but it did show that the actual like gay life satisfaction score was significantly higher in guys that were more well endowed. Shocker here. So next we're going to be talking about married couples. This was actually looking at data out of Nigeria that actually looked at anxiety rates between female partners engaging in intercourse, and as well as how they rated the size of their partner's penis. They actually had three main questions that they were looking at: that penis size will have a main effect on sexual satisfaction in married women, that anxiety will have a main effect on sexual satisfaction, and they thought that there was a significant interaction between anxiety and sexual satisfaction and penis size among married women. Now, why does this matter? Now, I thought that this was very interesting, and this was one of the more compelling papers that I actually couldn't find. But there is an excerpt here. When they looked at actual satisfaction in Iranian married couples, sexual dissatisfaction, so people being unhappy, was a main cause of 82% of women and 74% of men who filed for divorce. Like, that's really high, guys, that, all the other stuff, like, no, they're dissatisfied in sex, and so we're getting a divorce. this literature, I think it's actually important. I really do, because especially if there is an association between size and satisfaction. So guys, once again, in this data, 75% of the women saying that they were very satisfied. Only a quarter of women said that they preferred the larger side, and 10% of women said that they preferred the smaller size. I think that's underappreciated, guys. 1 in every 10 women in this study said that they didn't want big. They definitely didn't want big. They didn't even want average. They wanted a smaller size. Now, that being said, there was an association that they found between the size of the penis. The larger the size, there were higher rates of sexual satisfaction as long as you were either average or big. The one big flaw of this paper is that they didn't say, like, here's an example of big, here's medium, here's small. They just took whatever the wife's perception of the size of their husband was. And so if, that woman didn't have a large body count or hadn't seen many guys, she might assume that something well above her average was average because that's all she knows, or vice versa, or something very, very small was big, so it's kind of like you can't quantify this if you don't even know what the standard is, and you can't quantify what is small or medium or big. This whole data set is kind of crap. So I don't want you guys perseverating too much on this, but there is still a trend, guys. However, most of the women on this study preferred a medium-sized penis than either a small or a big. Okay, that is definitely something. So guys, here's a great paper. It's called Female O and Overall Sexual Function and Habits, okay? I'm just going to break down some of the important highlights of these papers. But for one, they said 89% of women responded yes when asked, do you find the size of your partner's penis satisfactory? 43% of women agreed when asked, do you think that penis size is important for your sexual satisfaction? 29% reported that the bigger the penis, the better sexual satisfaction, where 51% reported that a bigger penis did not matter for sexual satisfaction. So over half the women said that a bigger penis did not matter, and almost 90% of the women said that they were currently satisfied. More importantly, what they found is that when you're looking at something called a multivariate analysis, meaning accounting for all the confounding factors, like what does the actual data tell you, they found that you had higher rates of a positive experience when the woman had a more sex positive attitude. She was not stressed. She had a good emotional relationship with the partner. And importantly, the perceived erectile function was a major indicator of how successful the encounter was going to be, guys. So guys, I'm going to close the study with one of the quotes that they included in their closing, which says, most of the women found their partner's penis size was satisfactory, indicating that size does not seem to be of great importance for their sexual satisfaction in the present study. However, we cannot conclude that the absence of this issue means that penis size does not matter for the women, and we do not have data on the actual penis size of their partners. If you can't quantify and say what is small, medium, and large, you're just taking whatever that woman's interpretation of what is a small, medium, or large and making conclusions. Your data is kind of crap, guys. So I made a video, one of my early videos that actually has done very well about does penis size matter according to science or something, and they basically handed women 3D models. This study is gold because it actually gave women models to hold and say, okay, this is X size, rather than just being in their mind okay, well, do I prefer small, medium, or large, when some women might not have any context of what that actually is, especially considering most guys think an average size is way bigger than it actually is. Maybe women are the same thing. The average penis size, guys, bone pressed, is about 5.2 inches. I know. If you want to be specific, 5.17 inches, okay? That is not tremendously big. It's average, okay, for a reason. I don't know, especially if you watch TikTok videos, some girl might be like, if you ain't 9 inches, get out of my face. But it's you've never actually been with anybody that's 9 inches, because those are very, very, very rare. But anyways, guys, it's just all of these data where you're just do you like big pee-pees? And the woman's like, yes, I do. How do you know if you don't know exactly what a big pee-pee is? So that's a major flaw with this. Guys, here's a study titled, What Importance Do Women Attribute to the Size of the Penis? Now, this was a paper, and the way they did this paper was just wild to me. Women who had recently given birth, still on the OB-GYN floor after giving birth, were given a survey about how important penis size is after literally giving birth and having their reproductive organs like shattered by a baby. This kind of almost nullifies this data here, but what they found was that 20% of the women found the length of the penis important, 1% very important. 55% found the length of the penis unimportant, and 22% found it totally unimportant. They also found that length was less important than girth, but the women that did find girth more important were also the women that said that length was more important as well. What they concluded that although clearly in the minority, nevertheless, a considerable percentage of the women respondents attached substantial importance to the size of the male sexual organ. Now, it wasn't saying they want bigger necessarily. It just says, does it matter? And so maybe they just don't want a small pee-pee and they're just very happy with an average size pee-pee. So you guys really have to be careful with trying to jump to conclusions with what they're saying with this. So guys, finally, this isn't peer-reviewed data, but this is a guy who talks about his experience with having an actual micropenis. I think his penis was 2.5 inches hard in this article. You can read it. I'll leave a link below. But it said that this guy still has plenty of wonderful sexual encounters and he's able to pleasure a lot of women by using other techniques than trying to rely on the pee-pee. I've heard this from, believe it or not, many different women that most of their worst encounters are with more well-endowed guys because they just kind of jam it in there and trust that their size is going to get them through and they don't really put in effort. So guys, what's my experience? Well, I've never had a girl tell me that she wished that I was bigger. My body count is actually very, very small, a limited sample size. And, I did start out kind of bigger than average, but that's never been a thing that's come up. I've had women be like, oh, I was expecting it to be bigger, but that's way different than being like, oh, I wish you were bigger. I personally have never come across a girl that size has really mattered to her. That's just my personal experience. But I will say, that other studies show, there's so many more factors that are important when it comes to satisfaction. One of those is confidence. So when I was able to put on 1.5 inches of length and an inch in girth, my confidence went through the roof, and that's what made me a better lover, guys. I think that has a better impact than the actual size. It's more like the confidence that comes with it. Now, that being said, if you want to be taught by me based on actual real published medical literature on how to get bigger, my course is available. It's getting great reviews. The link is in the description below. So guys, what are my most important takeaways? Well, guys, I'm not going to lie to you and say size doesn't matter. For the most part, almost 90% of women are very content with the size that you have, but there are some women that do prefer bigger pee-pees, okay? Now, those happen to be the women that prefer the vaginal O's. If your partner happens to like deep penetration, then she's probably going to be one of the ones that likes a bigger, pee-pee. But it's the emotional connection, it's the foreplay, it's the taking your time, it's the taking that effort to make yourself a good lover rather than just the size of your jimmy. And guys, you are enough. This isn't just some catchphrase. You are enough just as you are. And that's why I say it at the end of my videos. Please don't think that you need to be bigger or one of those corn stars on TV, guys. It's more important to pick a woman or a man that loves you for who you are. I know that's corny, guys, but it's true. So guys, that'll do it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. If you did, please take a second to give a thumbs up on the video. And if you haven't already, I'd love a subscription. I'm on my way to 25K. I appreciate you guys. Peace and love. Hopefully you're not injured, but if you are, I do have a course on hard flaccid that's available in the description. If you need to reach me for consultation, patreon.com/DocHink. To have a conversation with me, there's of course r/Hink on my subreddit. And then of course, if you like Callie and like the work that he does, please use the QR code on the screen and you can make a small donation for the price of a cup of coffee and you will in return get 26K wallpapers. Anyways guys, catch you on the next one. Peace and love. Dr. Hink got the plug on the health, yeah. Got you thinking about your wealth, yeah.